Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's Andrew Musgrove here. Hope you guys are all doing well. Please do hit thumbs up to this video, hit subscribe to the channel, get into the comments as well. I'll get back to each and every single one of you. If you're listening on the audio only channel, please do leave us a rating and review. Your support, as always, is greatly appreciated. As you can tell, if you're watching, I'm by myself in the studio once again because Aaron Stokes is still on holiday, sunning himself some far-flung European destination. I know he's had a belter time, but he can't wait to be back later this week, hopefully bringing you some news of a transfer breakthrough. As you can probably hear, I'm a little bit bunged up. I'm suffering from hay fever. I've now got the beginnings of a cold. Somehow, after like the hottest week of the year, I've come down with a cold. So I've got my Lemsip at the ready. Other brands are available. And hopefully, I'll be fighting fit later in the week. I wish I'd been on holiday though, because if I'd been on holiday, not only would I have enjoyed a sustained period of summer weather, we know here it's 2 days on, 2 days off, full of thunder and lightning and rain and what have you. But if I'd been abroad, not only would I have enjoyed the sunshine, I would have also enjoyed the eSIM service app Saily, brought to you by the creators of NORD VPN. Here you can choose from several affordable eSIM data plans in over 200 destinations. With a Saily eSIM, you'll always have a connection when needed. If you've ever been lost abroad or badly needed an internet connection with no Wi-Fi spot in sight, you'll understand what a difference a local SIM card can make. An eSIM provides an internet connection wherever you travel and saves you money on roaming fees. Download the app once. It's affordable. Choose between global and regional plans, 24/7 support available. Hit the link in the podcast description box for a discounted offer. Get yourself connected and support the podcast. What are we talking about today? Then I hear you shout. It's not going to be transfer breakthrough, is it? Because at the time of recording, nothing looks imminent. I do enjoy saying that though, because every time I say something like that, something tends to creep up and surprise us all. So I'll say it again. Nothing's imminent. And hopefully by the time you hear this or watch this, something has broken when it comes to Newcastle United and transfers, although I don't believe it will. We're going to talk about Marc Guehi. Yes, Mr. Marc Guehi. Must you? I hear you shout again. Well, yes, we must, because over the weekend, news broke that Liverpool are interested in the Crystal Palace defender. Now, to me, that's not new news. Easy for me to say. Liverpool have been at the table for the last 2 or 3 windows when it comes to Marc Guehi. My understanding is that when they went and asked last summer, the price was too high and they just walked away the same in January. And all the noise last summer was about Newcastle United. Did the bid, didn't the bid, various different stories of what actually happened. Newcastle United still hold a really strong interest in Marc Guehi. If you're asking my opinion and my insight on it, I still believe he's top of the shop on this when it comes to Newcastle United this summer. It's just all about whether they can get that deal done. From people I speak to, a deal is there to be done. It's just whoever wants it more needs to be showing a little bit of aggression. This deal can be done though. But yeah, Liverpool interested. They think they can get a bit of a bargain here. Certainly less than the price they were quoted last summer, which was what, 65 million pounds. And I think that has obviously gone down because he's only got 12 months left on his contract. But Palace still holding out for 55 million perhaps, which I think they are more than allowed to do. It's their player, although the 12 months makes it less likely they're going to get their initial asking price. I still think anything between 45 and 50 million pounds is a bargain for Marc Guehi, because I think long term, I think if you can get 8 to 10 years out of Marc Guehi after paying 45, 50 million pounds for him, I think you will not care one bit about that price tag. You will just look back on it and think, that was a fantastic deal. What a brilliant player he's been. What a brilliant servant he's been, especially if that 8 or 10 years comes with a few trophies or even a Premier League title bid, hopefully a title win. But yeah, Marc Guehi, I mean, he's kind of become the Bastos or Tranquilla Barnetta of this generation, hasn't he? And for younger listeners, just Google those two names, Barnetta, Jesmond Dean House Hotel, and Google Bastos Newcastle United. You'll see what I mean, because those two players were continuously linked with moves to Newcastle United over like 3, 4, 5 windows. It never happened, but still it makes me chuckle to this day. That's when X was a friendly place to be, and you just have kind of Mickey takes on social media. Barnetta was always rumoured to be locked in a hotel room at Jesmond Dean House Hotel. We could all have a laugh on Twitter before it turned a little bit nasty. But yeah, have a little Google of that. You'll see what I mean, because I'm sure you'll find some tweets or a story or two. But What I would love more, and I don't care which side of the fence this falls on, I would love Marc Guehi to sign for Newcastle United. I think he is a talented player. An upgrade on what they've got already at the back for long-term kind of building block to the hopefully a successful Newcastle United as a club, as a title challenging, as a trophy lifting club. Marc Guehi would be the perfect foundation in what is already a very decent spine at Newcastle United. I think he's a tremendous player. But at this point in this saga, if I woke up tomorrow and Newcastle United have not signed Marc Guehi, but the chase is over, it is done and dusted, I would celebrate. I'd be a little bit gutted, but at least it's done and dusted. At least it's over, and we don't have to sit through this, for the next 2 or 3 months, because we don't want that. We don't want that, do we? It would just be nice to have an answer this time tomorrow. It's not going to happen because negotiations take place, talks take place. Oh, but I would love to click my fingers and know the answer. Wouldn't you? I'm sick of this. Absolutely sick of this. And it may drag on a little bit longer. What's going to happen? Well, this is the interesting thing. I think there's a few options when it comes to the future of Marc Guehi, and I will talk through them now. So option one is that he stays at Crystal Palace and either runs down his contract and leaves on a free next summer or signs a new deal. Now, let's talk about running down his contract and leaving next summer. Some people have said he could do that and then go and join Real Madrid, who we've seen are experts at picking really talented players, Mbappe, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and picking them up for free. That's what they do. Could Marc Guehi head down that same path? Who knows? I've seen a few people on social media suggest he could. Crystal Palace are not going to let that happen. If Crystal Palace are told Marc Guehi is not signing a new deal, then I think their price will drop slightly. So if they want 55, 50 million pounds now, I think if Marc Guehi is honest and brutal with them and says, look, I'm not signing a new deal, my plan is to run down that contract, then I think that changes things and the whole dynamic switches and Crystal Palace try and push him towards the door. I think it'll all be done amicably. He's, captain, FA Cup winning captain and what have you, but I think that's what happens. For what it's worth, I don't think Marc Guehi will run down his contract. I think the connection he's got with Crystal Palace, that potentially leaves it ending on a bad note. It's also in many ways robbing the club of 45, 50 million pounds. I don't think he'll do that. Like I say, I think the club would make a deal happen if that, though, was his plan. Now, him staying and signing a new contract is an interesting theory because if I was Steve Parish, that's what I would be trying to do. Now, I think it depends on Crystal Palace getting the green light to play in the Europa League next season. Now, of course, they won the FA Cup, as I've mentioned there, but at the moment, the fact that Cohen and John Textor also Cohen's Lyon is creating a little bit of an issue. And one of those clubs are going to have to drop out of that competition. But are they? Because at the time of recording, just as I press record, it's been announced that actually Textor has agreed to sign away his co-ownership of Crystal Palace to another American businessman, which should remove the obstacle. I've seen a few reports saying it doesn't guarantee that Crystal Palace get European football next season, but I find that very hard to believe. I mean, if he sells his stake, then Lyon are no longer connected to Crystal Palace via that ownership, via John Textor, and Crystal Palace will play European football. I can't see any reason why they wouldn't if that deal goes through. UEFA set to make a decision later this week. Whether that means the only thing holding it up would be the quick completion of the sale of his stake. I don't know. Don't know the ins and outs of it, but I would imagine with that news that he sold his stake, Palace will be in the Europa League next season, which I think boosts their chances. I really, really do. If I was Steve Parish and you get it confirmed that we can play Europa League football, I'd go to Marc Guehi and say, look, let's sign a new deal, sign a new contract, 3 or 4 years, we'll announce it, to the world. He gets himself a pay rise, right? Within that deal, if you're Marc Guehi, you say, okay, I'll sign it, get a nice bump in my weekly wage, but I want a release clause that states a Champions League team comes in and offers, 80 million, 100 million for me. No ifs or buts. I'm away. I'm allowed to go. I think that suits everybody. Palace get a really good defender for the next year who wants to lead them out in a European campaign. I've been told that he's excited by that prospect of leading Crystal Palace into a European campaign. So he gets to do that. And he also gets a route to a top team next summer. Potentially more importantly for Marc Guehi, though, and this is why I don't think he'll move to Liverpool, even if he decides that he wants summer. Crystal Palace offers him pretty much guaranteed first team football in what is going to be such an important year for so many players because the World Cup is happening next summer. Now, Marc Guehi is a seasoned England international, but is he first choice for Thomas Tuchel? There's a lot of people who can play in that centre-back position. And if he moves to Liverpool, where he could start the season as fourth choice, because they've got Van Dijk, they've got Kante, and they've got Gomez as well. Quansah is going to go to Bayer Leverkusen. But, he's got three quality centre-backs to do battle with. Is he going to unseat Van Dijk? Probably not. And him and Kante have got a really good relationship. He could be third or fourth choice at Liverpool and not be playing week in, week out. At Newcastle, it would be a little bit different. You imagine if they've spent 40, 50 million pounds on Marc Guehi, he comes in and he unseats probably Fabian Schär, with Sven Botman coming back to fitness, and the partnership would be Botman and Guehi, although a lot of people point out he's probably more comfortable on that left side. So a little bit of kind of questions about that. But in terms of first team football, more likely to get first team football at Newcastle than he is Liverpool, but more likely to get first team football at Crystal Palace, Liverpool, or Newcastle. And I think the incentive of that World Cup, not just the squad, but the starting 11, may turn his head slightly. Chucking European football, chance to captain Crystal Palace in a major European competition. You say, what's a year? What's a year if it means I get to play in the World Cup with England, I get to play European football, I get a pay rise, and then, as I say, you are pretty guaranteed to move to a top side because you've got that clause written into your contract. I think that would make sense for all parties if that's something that could be done, but it does depend on that European football being guaranteed by UEFA. Now, of course, the other option is that he signs for either Newcastle United or Liverpool or Chelsea or Tottenham, come back to the table. Basically, he moves away from Crystal Palace this summer. Palace don't hold the cards in this. They are not naive to the fact that his deal runs out this time next summer. It's not like Newcastle and Alexander Isak, where the player has 3 years left on his deal and any potential buyers have to pay what the club asks. Crystal Palace don't have that luxury, so they are going to have to make a decision one way or the other. The player has a little bit more power in this instance, either whether running down his contract or trying to get the price down. But a lot of people say £50 million. Should Newcastle United really be paying that if that is indeed the asking price? As I've said earlier in the show, for me, I think long-term it would prove to be a bargain. Other teams historically have paid big money for players who've got less than 12 months left on their contract. Harry Kane moved to Bayern Munich from Tottenham, £100 million. Dembele moved from Barcelona to PSG, £50 million. James Maddison moved from Leicester for £40 million. And each one of those had less than 12 months left on their contract. So clubs, I think, when they can see a potential upgrade to their team is right there in front of them, they just do it. Maybe we get too bogged down in contracts and what's left on them and looking for the right value. I mean, who's to say what Marc Guehi's worth? I think he's worth 45, 50 million pounds. I'd pay it. Some of you guys think he's worth less than that. Some of you guys don't even want him. Who's to say? But there are examples of where clubs have got a target, they've got a player they like, and they go, do you know what? We're not going to risk it. Wait until next summer when someone else could come in and offer bigger wages. There's a sign-on fee, etc. There's a chance now to get a player for less than he would be worth if he had 2 or 3 years on his deal. So we just get it done. We just get it done and we get him in the team and we reap the benefits of that. And that's what Newcastle United should do. That's what Newcastle will do, hopefully. They like him. They watched him. They've done the homework. They know how good he is. There is a deal to be made there for whichever team wants him the most. Just be aggressive. Show him that you want him. And, the first step of that is actually by saying, do you know what? We're going to pay this and let's open that door to negotiations. Then you sit down with a player. This is why you should come and join us this summer and hopefully Newcastle United can get that deal done. Honestly, it would be just a fantastic, fantastic deal. It really, really would. Now, of course, Newcastle United could look elsewhere. That is the other option. And over the weekend, they've been linked to Atlanta's Giorgio Scalvini, 21-year-old. Now, you might remember A few weeks ago, we did an alternative list to Marc Guehi with Sam Milner, and he listed Scalvini as his wild card. He has been linked to a few other clubs, namely Liverpool and Manchester United. Now, the report a few weeks ago said that it would cost about 55 million pounds to sign Scalvini. Reports this weekend suggest it might be a little bit lower. Look, I can't sit here and pretend that I've watched him, because I haven't. What I do know, though, is his injury record isn't great. He's recovering from an ACL. Now, that is a lot of money, if it is indeed 45, 50 million pounds, to roll the dice on someone who's recovering from an ACL. Now, people say, oh, well, they're signing Tino Livramento. Sven Botman's coming back from an ACL as well. It'll be fine. And look, it may well be fine. But a young man coming over from Saudi, it's not exactly an easy league to transfer from, because if we're being brutally honest, it's not the best of leagues in terms of, I think, the physicality, the speed of play. Some brilliant players in there. I mean, look, Santonali, for example. But there's no guarantee, and there's never a guarantee. But I think there's a less of a guarantee that a young man like Scalvini comes in and is a big hit in the Premier League. Hopefully, he would be if Newcastle signed him. But I do think, coupled with his injury record, it's a little bit of a risk. But maybe there's a bargain to be had there. Maybe Atlanta know that the money they could have got from before this injury, and he missed the most of last season, is less this time around. So maybe they do want to cash in. Interesting link there, and one that, God, look, if they sign him, they don't sign Marc Guehi, but one that could in many ways, I guess, if they do manage to get him on the cheap, present better value for money. But I do think it would be a massive, massive risk. One thing that I do think stands out is that whatever happens with Marc Guehi, whether it's announced he's stopping, whether it's announced he's going to Liverpool or another team, Newcastle then need to act quickly to quell what would be an absolute meltdown on social media, because we can't see another target going elsewhere. I mean, we can. It's the world of football. And, of course, they'll have contingency plans. Look, it might turn out, it'll be a smoke screen. Newcastle United, as did with Tonali, you remember, it was all about that Inter Milan midfielder. And all of a sudden, Tonali rocked up in black and white. Newcastle have proved themselves to be very, very good operators in the transfer market, and deals just come out of absolute nowhere. I think this one's a little bit different. They do like Marc Guehi, but they need to act quickly, in my opinion, just to kind of contain the agenda here. If you're going to sign him, let's get to it. If not, let's move on and get other targets, because although patience is still the buzzword, and it's only a few weeks that the window's been open, there's plenty of time yet. Social media, the fan base, understand we're getting a little bit nervous. Obviously, we want dealings through the window. We'd love to see some prior to them going off to pre-season. I think that really is a must. And the bottom line is, as I said earlier in the show, we don't want this to drag out at all. Again, now I did ask you guys to get in touch regarding Marc Guehi and what you guys wanted to see Newcastle do with regards to their interest in him. Thank you to everyone who replied to my tweet. Quite a few of you guys got involved. And, it's split. I think there's a lot of people who like him, but a lot of people who are worried that this saga could yet drag on for the rest of the summer like it did last year. But there's definitely a lot in the fan base who are big fans of him. Now, we've got Ollie saying sign him. We've got Johnny saying if they can get him, great. If not, then there are plenty of other options to target. We don't want a repeat of last summer. Ben, however, says bin him off and hope that the Scalvini links are legit. John says sign him. 45 million on a proven Premier League defender. He's a young international defender who can only get better, especially under Eddie Howe. Craig says go for him. If it is rejected, move on to the targets. Great defender, but we can't afford another protracted transfer saga like last summer. David says move on. A waste of all of last summer. Shane saying we're not going to get him. Anthony says it feels like a waste of time. Davey says buy him. DM says end it and move on. DG says move on. Not convinced he's that keen and he's too expensive. P. Smithy says move on. He's Liverpool bound. John says make a bid, and Jerome says end it. So you can see there the mix. I think you do have, as I say, a lot of people who like him, who think he'd be a good addition to Newcastle United, but a lot of people, most people, the majority of people who just cannot be bothered to see this one drag out any longer than it needs to. And hopefully one way or another, we get an answer in the next couple of days or the next week or so, because we certainly don't want to be going into July or the middle of the month next month wondering if Newcastle are going to sign Marc Guehi or not. They need replacements in as fast as possible. They're working away in the background to get that done. Everyone is calm. There's confidence that deals can get done. We're going to hopefully see some movement in the next couple of weeks. Again, that buzzword is patience, I think. We've just got to remain calm, keep everything crossed. Something comes off. Anyhow, gets those 3 or 4 players, at the very least, that he needs to build this squad. I still think Marc Guehi will happen. I do. I think he will be a Newcastle United player. But it's up to Newcastle United to come to the table now and get Crystal Palace down to a price that suits everybody. The project is there. It's an exciting project to join. More guaranteed first-team football than he would be at Liverpool. And it's only whether he sees Crystal Palace for at least one more year as the right place to be in terms of, I guess, his international aspirations and wearing that captain's armband as well. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. It's been a pleasure as always. Enjoy the rest of your week. Plenty more shows coming up. I'll catch you guys very soon.